Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Rose. If you clicked on this channel, you probably are aware that this is a channel about AVPD, Avoidant Personality Disorder. So I was walking my kid to school this morning, and I had an interesting thought. It's interesting to myself. I thought, what causes AVPD? So I looked up on my phone, and I want to read what the causes are. Okay, so it says, let me move this here so I'm looking at the camera. So it says that the causes, what is thought to cause AVPD is emotional abuse, criticism, ridicule, or lack of affection or nurturing by a parent or caregiver in childhood. This may result in the development of this personality disorder. If other factors are also present, also rejection by peers may be similarly a risk factor. So I would like to preface this by saying that I'm not trying to talk bad about anyone in my childhood at all. It's just I've been interested in why I am the way that I am, and I started connecting some dots. So I want to say, first and foremost, I love my mom, and she's a wonderful person, and there's nothing wrong with her. She's wonderful. But she may have contributed to my problem. So I thought this might be helpful to anyone else who has this disorder. Maybe you can look back through your childhood and see if there are any examples of anything similar in your life. So the first instance of this disorder that I am aware of was when I was in kindergarten. I had a report card, and on the report card the teacher said, like, really good student, just has a lot of trouble making friends. This is when I was 5 years old, obviously, because I was in kindergarten. So that was very young, and so I started thinking, well, what could have caused that so young? You know, I had both my parents until I was, they got divorced when I was like 19, so they were always together. However, my father was Special Forces, and if you don't know, I know that some people watch these videos from outside the United States. If you don't know what Special Forces are, the military in America has 4 different branches. There's the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, and the Army, and of course you have like the Coast Guard and stuff like that, but the 4 main branches. And the elite forces for the Army are known as Special Forces and Rangers, and my dad was Special Forces. And he would travel all over the world training people how to shoot guns and how to jump out of helicopters, and he trained drill sergeants, and he was an elite fighter, right? And he would go for, a lot of people in like the Navy go for like 6 months to a year. I don't remember my father ever leaving for more than like 3 months at a time, maybe 4, but around 3 months every time. So he would like leave, he'd go to Korea for 3 months, and then he would come back. And he would leave and he would go to Thailand for a few months, and then he would come back. And this was what was happening most of my childhood until we moved to Alaska when I was like 14. So most of my childhood, my dad was there on and off. And not because he was neglecting his family. It was more out of he was required to go overseas. So he wasn't there a lot. So it was my mother and me. I was the firstborn, so I didn't have any siblings for the first 3.5 years that I was alive. My mom told me this story recently, within like the last year or so, which started to connect a lot of dots for me. My mom had me when she was 21 years old. She was 21, my dad was 24. They got married when my mom was 18, so they were together for 3 years before she got pregnant. She had me when she was 21, and I would like to say that having children very young, not the best idea. I waited until I was 28 to have my first child, and I really didn't start figuring my life out and my mind out until I was about 34 after I had my second child. So I don't think it's the best idea to have kids when you're super young. Maybe it'll work out for other people. Maybe, I don't know. it's been my experience that it's not the best idea, because when you're very young, you know, it's like babies raising babies, right? And my mother was, you know, young. She tells me this story that they were going to church down in, I think it was Tacoma, Washington at the time, and the pastor told her that he wanted her to be the what do you call it? Like there was like our big church sanctuary where they had the sermons and whatnot, and then at the back of that room there was another room with like, it had full windows on the front of it so you could see the sermon as it was happening, and there was like speakers in the room so you could hear it, and you would be back there as the daycare manager watching the children while listening to the sermon. Well, the pastor told my mom he wanted her to be the daycare person so that she would be back there with the kids during the sermon. My mom tells me, she says this was like worst case scenario for her, because she did not like it when children touched her. She just didn't like kids. And this started to really click with me, because I was like, oh, you didn't want me to touch you, and you didn't, you know, you weren't excited about how, I mean, maybe she was, but, you know, she didn't enjoy being around little kids, you know what I mean? And this was when I was like 3 years old, so she had had her own child for like 3 years, and like after I had my child, I liked being around kids, you know, and apparently that was not what happened to her. She really did not like having little kids around her. And so I keep thinking, and also apparently when I was you know, just newborn, she said that I almost starved because she thought she was breastfeeding me, but it wasn't working, and I wasn't, like, I was malnourished because I wasn't eating enough breast milk, because she just wasn't producing enough, and I'm not sure, she just didn't realize it at first or what, but so like even that like nurturing aspect of being a mom and breastfeeding your child, apparently that was somewhat traumatic for baby me. And then, you know, for the next 3.5 years before my sister was born, it was just me and my mom, and intermittently my father. And I'm pretty sure, given everything that I've been told, that I was just very alone. Very sad, probably. And I don't know if that was the beginning of all this or not, but it seems to match up, because if at 5 years old I was already struggling with this, I mean, it stands to reason that something caused it before that, and I think these things may have been it. And I don't want to say like my parents neglected me. I think that they were inexperienced and young, and they were probably doing their best, you know, like I look at like this particular personality disorder, and you know, the personality that my boyfriend has, and the disorder that my dad was a narcissist. He was very much a narcissist. He's still alive, I don't want to say was, but he hasn't talked to me in like 6 years, because we got into a Facebook argument, and so he just doesn't talk to me anymore. My mom does. My mom and I have a better relationship, and we never really had a bad relationship. I think she just, you know, was really young, didn't know what she was doing at first, and at the same time, like, you really have to look at my generation and imagine how much different it was every single previous generation. You know, they didn't have the internet to go look up personality disorders. They didn't have, what are you doing? You want to sit with me? Can you go potty?
They're paper. The cherry.
Sorry, I had to pause. My child was making an unusual amount of noise. Anyway, yeah, I don't, I'm not trying to blame my parents. I'm really not, because I look at every single generation that came before me and I think, like, you didn't have the internet. You know, if you wanted to go to therapy, you actually had to go to therapy. You know, you had to pay a ridiculous amount of money, and it just wasn't feasible for a lot of people. And also, there's a stigma attached to it, you know. And also, it's a very new practice, historically speaking. It's only really been like the last, what, 150 years or less that it's really been looked into. And like these personality disorders, I don't think were fully recognized before very recently. So it's not like you could go find out, you know, if you had some sort of mental problem easily. And it's not even like you were taking that seriously. I mean, like, my mom went to military doctors, and I mean, they would, if you were the wife of a, you know, prestigious elite fighter for the American military, they sometimes weren't that honest with you. Anyway, yeah, so I just want to say, like, I'm not trying to blame anyone. I'm just trying to figure out, he's going back to him. I'm just trying to figure out where everything started. So, you know, if my mom sees this in the future, I don't want her to think that I'm blaming her. I legitimately think that she married a narcissist and had babies too young. And, I mean, it turned out well because here I am, right? Just kidding. But, you know, if you have personality disorder, if you know someone who has a personality disorder, or like your parents had a personality disorder, you know, you really want to, I think, be kind of lenient, because it's a new practice, you know. And by new, I mean, like, over the course, you know, I think it's more common within the last couple of generations to have a therapist than it really has been, you know, ever since, like, I think it was in the let me look this up. It was in the 1950s, the publication of the first diagnostic and statistical manual of mental health disorders came out. So 1950s, doesn't say the exact year, but that's been 70 years. That's 3 generations, you know. And they didn't have access to the internet. They, you know, not everyone had this diagnostics manual that they could refer to, and not everyone had a therapist, and not everyone, you know, had an encyclopedia where they were going to read about personality disorders either. You know, like, psychiatry really only became a thing with in like the late 1800s, and it really wasn't even like taken super seriously, I think, until like Freud in like the 1920s. So it's new, and I find it really interesting, and I'm excited to learn more, because I think that the more you know, the more you can solve your problems. You know, like, if I realize that my personality disorder stems from, you know, neglect, then I'm aware of that, and I can break that cycle with my own children. You know, I can be affectionate and I can be present, which is the thing that I'm really trying to work on, because, you know, I'll get distracted by my phone or whatever million tasks I've set out for myself to do that day. And through really understanding, like, where my problems stem from, I'm able to not continue that neglectful behavior onto my children. So I think the more that I learn about this, the better off I'm going to be in the future. So I guess my advice to anyone out there is, learn as much as you can. Learn as much as you can about yourself, and, you know, about your family, about your history, where you came from, you know, what were the traumatic events in your life. And, you know, once you realize what those traumatic events were, and, you know, what those patterns were, you can address them. And once you address them, you can move on from them. And that's the big thing. You need to move on from all these problems. And like, just from doing these videos and doing this research, I've realized that, like, I feel like I'm going through a major change in my life. Like, don't start crying. Anyway, it's been really good, you know, like being able to find out like where everything started has been great for me, and being able to like face it and to talk about it on this channel has been so helpful, you know, like my mood has changed. And I don't know if I've been more social because COVID's happening, so I haven't actually been able to go out, but like I feel like the fear is vanishing. And I don't know if this is curable, but I feel like I'm making some sort of progress. And it's really great, you know? I keep thinking about sorry. I keep thinking about the movie in Mulan. And in the movie, I remember at the very beginning, they're all sitting, Mulan and her father are sitting on this bench underneath this cherry blossom tree. And her father's trying to talk her out of being really sad because she kind of messed up, right? Brought dishonor on her family. And her father looks up at the tree and there's this unblossomed, or hasn't bloomed yet, cherry blossom that hasn't bloomed. He said, "Oh, look. This one is late. But I bet you when it blooms, it will be the most beautiful." And he was saying like, sorry. He was saying like, she might be a late bloomer, but when she does bloom, it's gonna be great. Which it was, obviously, if you've ever seen the movie. And I keep thinking about that and hoping that like it's not too late for me. And maybe if I get past this, there's something great ahead for me. You can hope, right? Sorry, I know I'm crying, but it's not out of depression. It's out of more realization, revelation, and more out of anticipation for what could come next. Like I was sad for a really long time, thinking that like it was never going to get any better. But through this whole process, I've realized that it is getting better. And there are really good things to come. So, if you have this problem, just research. Just find out what's up with you. Find out what caused your problems and face them. And it's going to be really hard. It's so hard. It was really, really worth it. Anyway. I gotta go. My kid's crying. Bye. Have a good day. Also, I have like 3 broken nails. I'm supposed to get my nails done tomorrow, and I probably should have waited to do this video until I did my nails. But if you notice that, don't criticize me, okay? Okay. Bye.